Annyeonghaseyo. Welcome, all my beautiful people, to the alternate point of view. My name is Tracy Lee, and today we are going to be discussing the 1 year anniversary of Samantha Woll. Samantha Woll was murdered 1 year ago today, October 21st, 2023. Today marks 1 year of no justice for Samantha Woll. And today marks 1 year of more questions than answers in her death. And today we are going to go over the evidence that we have seen. We are going to go over what it is that we can do to figure out how we can find justice for Samantha, because Samantha and her family do not have justice to this day, and we do not want Samantha's case to go cold. And it is unfortunate that we are here because the answers are sitting in front of the Detroit Police Department's face, and in front of the District Attorney's Office face, and in front of the Attorney General's face, in Michigan and in Detroit, but they are not looking any further than where they are because they think they are right. And it's sad, it's unfortunate, because I would like to see this case solved and not go cold. But we all know what it's like when people don't want to admit they're wrong, and they don't want to basically scrap everything and start from scratch and do this right. So let's get into this. On October 21st, 2023, Samantha Woll went to a wedding, actually on the 20th, the night before. She went to a wedding. She had an amazing time celebrating with friends, loved ones. She was dressed in a beautiful blue dress, purplish blue dress, and she looked beautiful. She's smiling. Samantha's always smiling. I haven't seen a picture of Samantha yet where she wasn't always just beaming. And I know they always say this in every crime YouTube channel, every crime show, everything, but Samantha really, really did light up a room. She really, really did just draw people in. And she was so down to earth that she really made people want to be and feel like she was their friend. She was very personable. And all of that while being very involved in the community, very involved in politics, and a Jewish synagogue president. So she did not make herself untouchable or unapproachable. She made herself really just get along with everyday people because she considered herself an everyday person. And that is what makes Samantha Woll such a tough loss to Detroit and, of course, to her family. So I want everyone to just remember that this is about Samantha and getting justice for Samantha. And I want everyone to pray for her family, pray for justice, pray that God puts his hands on the entire justice system in Detroit. And I pray that her family and everyone will wake up and see the light. And please do not let this case go cold. And please look at other avenues and not have tunnel vision. Because at the end of the day, we want to fight for justice for Samantha. Amen. Now, what happened to Samantha Woll? October 21st, 2023. Samantha Woll comes home at 12:30 a.m. She gets home. Her door opens at 12:31. That is what her ADT motion sensor says. Keep in mind, she had an ADT alarm system, but she did not use it. She did not turn it on. She did not turn it off. She just had it there for the sensors. So her sensor showed her door open at 12:31. And she gets an alert on her phone at 1:01 a.m. that tells her that her door is still open. Now, keep in mind, when you have an ADT system, anyone who has one probably knows this, but you have the little sensors on your door, okay? And you have another little sensor on the frame. And if these sensors are not touching one another, they're not touching. If they're even off a little bit, it means that your door is going to show open. Now, does that mean your door is wide open, or does it mean it's just cracked? We don't know. We don't know. According to the police and according to the district attorney office, they say her door was wide open. Just an open invitation for anyone. That's their theory. But according to the ADT company, it just needs to be off by just a quarter of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, maybe, to show that it's open. Then at 1:29, there shows to be a motion in the living room. Now, possibly because in that time frame, from the time that Samantha got home, she goes to her back door at 12:35 a.m. because it shows her back door open, and then it shows her back door close at 12:38. Now, we don't know if she's letting someone in. We don't know if she's going out to get something. We don't know what she's doing because there's no way to tell. It just shows motion. But what we do know is that she does go upstairs and she does change out of her lovely dress and put on something more comfortable, because there are crime scene photos that show that her dress is laid neatly on the bed, and she has changed into something more comfortable, some sweatpants, a t-shirt. She has a hoodie on, and she comes back downstairs, and she ends up at some point laying on the sofa because there shows motion in her living room at 1:29 a.m. Now, again, there is no more motion. The sensor shows idle at 1:24. Now, in order for a sensor to go idle, that means there cannot be any moving about. No moving. No moving. So, whatever point Samantha came back downstairs, she got comfortable, she sat down, and the sensor sensed nothing. And it went idle, which means it didn't see or feel or whatever, any motion anywhere from 1:24. It just started scanning for motion, didn't sense any motion, there was no motion. And then suddenly at 1:29, there was motion. And from 1:29, it didn't go idle again until, we don't know. There was motion ping again at 1:54. So this ADT alarm system is very confusing. Are you confused? Because I'm confused. There's a lot of confusion about this ADT motion, idle, no motion, what have you. So let me break it down for you again. 12:30, Samantha gets home. 12:31, the door opens. 1:01, she gets a notification that her door is still open. At 1:24 a.m., it goes idle, which means there's no motion. At 1:29 a.m., there's motion. And the system doesn't go back idle. At 1:54 a.m., there's a ping. a motion ping, like a modem ping. It's just like a ping. And then the back door, remember, was opened and closed at 12:35 a.m. and 12:38 a.m. So that's the back door. Now, there's no other motion, any other kind, until 4:20 a.m. There's motion in the living room, just motion, and then it goes idle again at 4:22. So idle again means there's no motion. Now, according to the ADT testimony, it stops recording for 2 to 3 minutes while it's looking for motion after it senses motion. So from 4:20 to 4:22, when it went into idle, that means there was no motion from 4:20 to 4:22. That means when it went into idle at 1:24, there was no motion for a couple of minutes at 1:24. And then there was motion again at 1:29. So from 1:29 a.m., there's motion going on in that townhouse. And 4:20 a.m., there's motion. I just don't understand the motion, okay? I don't understand how, and this is the prosecution's theory, that Samantha Woll was attacked at 4:20 a.m. by the person that they put on trial. This is their time of death they marked as 4:20 a.m. Not the medical examiner, an ADT motion sensor. That's what they marked it as. But if you look at the time frame, 12:31 a.m., her door opened, her front door. 12:32, there's motion. 12:35, she opens the back door. 12:38, she closes the back door. Then she goes upstairs, she changes her clothes, she comes back downstairs. There is motion in the living room at 1:24. Then it stops, no motion. At 1:29, motion. Then at, again, 4:20, motion. 4:22, it's idle. How in the world, if there's no motion from 4:20 to 4:22, someone can be attacked with no motion happening? What was happening between 1:29 and 4:20? Also, Samantha, when she came downstairs, apparently her Netflix app was running on her phone, which that could mean she was either watching Netflix or it was just running on her phone. We don't know that. What we do know is that she sent out a heart emoji text message to a man called David Wilkinson. This is a man that she used to date. He was supposed to, according to a friend of Samantha's, come over that night, but he did not show up, according to her friend. We don't know that. We don't know for certain that David Wilkinson did not show up that night, and he was not brought to the stand, and according to the police, he was cleared based on his phone data. But we don't know that for certain because he wasn't brought to trial. He wasn't put on the stand. He wasn't, asked any questions by the defense or the prosecution. He just said on the standby police, he was cleared. So we are just left to settle with that. She had, again, her app was running. Her phone was unlocked at 1:29 a.m. and it was locked again at 1:35 a.m. So there was no other human activity on her phone after 1:35 a.m. So again, there is a flaw in the prosecutor's theory that something happened to her at 4:20 a.m. Because if Samantha was waiting for a guest Why would she stop using her phone? And there was no human touching on her phone whatsoever after 1:29 a.m. That would mean, and that would beg to question, that possibly something happened to Samantha at that mark, not the 4:20 mark. Also, when this all happened, it conveniently happened 2 weeks after Hamas invaded Israel. The horrific October 7th incident where Hamas invaded Israel and took over 200 hostages and did horrific things to the Israeli people happened. And then 2 weeks later, Samantha, who is a Jewish synagogue president, was attacked in her home in the middle of the night, and her life was taken. And of course, the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, who was a friend of Samantha's, and also Samantha helped her get elected to that position, took this case immediately, thinking this was a hate, anti-Semitic crime. The state police were on this. The FBI were involved in this. There was a lot of people involved in this case, trying to find out who in the world would want to do this to Samantha. But right away, it was discovered this was not a hate crime. This was not anti-Semitic. And it couldn't possibly be a stranger because there was no forced entry. However, this was a very horrific and bloody crime scene. And Samantha was attacked terribly. And she was stabbed 8 times in the head and neck. Awfully. And she bled out for a long time in her hallway. She was attacked possibly on her sofa. She fought hard, and she fought to live for a long time because she crawled out of her townhome at some point, and possibly at the point of where that motion was sensed at 4:20 or at 1:29. I'm not sure. Either way, the motion was sensed, and she was found on the sidewalk in between her townhome and another townhome at 6:20 in the morning by a neighbor while he was walking his dog. And it was still dark outside, and the sidewalk is covered in blood. And Samantha lay there in the fetal position, and she passed away. She could no longer hold on. And we don't know how long she had been out there on the sidewalk, but guessing possibly 2 hours at least. And this is all guessing. Everything is a guess. And why is it all a guess? It's all a guess because the coroner's office, the medical examiner's office, did not complete the autopsy. Samantha was literally buried, and due to Jewish custom, the next day. Within 24 hours in Jewish custom, you must be buried. And so, therefore, the autopsy was not complete. There was not a time of death put on the death certificate or the autopsy report. There wasn't an estimated time of death. There wasn't anything. So, basically, we're going off an ADT motion sensor to tell us when they think Samantha passed away. And not attacked. They're not giving any time for the attack. They're not giving any time for anything. They could look at this ADT alarm system and look at the 1:29 time. They could look at the 12:32 time. They could look at the 1:54 time. They could look at all these other times, but they honed in on the 4:20 time. And I'll explain to you why they did that. Because when they very first came out, within literally 24 to 48 hours after this horrific crime happened to Samantha, they held a press conference. And the Detroit Police Department said that they were not yet ready to name who or how the relationship of the suspect that they had in mind was. But they knew this was not a hate crime or anti-Semitic crime. And they knew this was not a random act because there was no forced entry. No forced entry. And they said that they weren't ready to announce the relationship between their suspect, which they were pretty solid about, and Samantha. So they already had someone within the first 48 hours that they were ready to pounce on. And then something changed. What changed? I wonder. Could it be Paul, her best friend? I mean, with friends like him, who needs enemies? If you haven't watched the trial or haven't watched any of my other videos on my channel, please feel free to check them out. I have an entire series, Murder at Joliet Place, so check it out. Like, subscribe, and share, and let me know what you think. But Paul, her friend, told the police a laundry list of names for them to check out. Men, of course, that Samantha had seen or had some type of relationship with at some point in time, and thought they should have a little bit more looking into. Now, Paul basically threw Samantha under the bus and ran her over and over and over again. Now, Samantha is a pinnacle of the community. She is a saint, according to her family and friends. They had no idea that sweet, adorable, kind, and loving and giving Samantha was living her best life as a single woman in downtown Detroit. And she had a lot of friends. And her family is not happy that this is all being put out and aired out as dirty laundry. But Paul gives this laundry list of men that Samantha has been seeing or seen in the past or had some type of relationship with, and they have to be cleared pretty much right away. And of course, the Detroit Police Department clears them through their phone data, or so they say. David Wilkinson, the man that she sent the heart emoji to, the last and final text message on Samantha's phone that we know of, was sent to David Wilkinson, and we don't know what David Wilkinson sent to her. We weren't told that in the trial. That was left out. David Wilkinson never took the stand, as I stated, and we don't know if he was actually supposed to come over that night, but Paul says he was, and we don't know if he actually did come over that night. The back door was open 3 minutes and closed, and Samantha did go upstairs and change into something more comfortable to lay around in, chill out. She was also wearing a hoodie. I want to say, it is Detroit, it is October, it is a little chilly, right? But to me, if you're going to lay down and fall asleep on the sofa in your own home, you're not going to be wearing a hoodie. Wearing a hoodie means that you're going out, or you're waiting on someone, or you're doing something. You're not sitting around the house chilling. Or you have someone over, someone's coming over or something. So I don't know if Samantha was waiting on David or waiting on someone else. Another curious thing about Samantha is Samantha was, again, so friendly. She had a key lock box on her front door that had a key to her house in it. And many people had the code to this box. Samantha would give this code to anyone who wanted to stay at her house whenever they needed. She had people who could get the code if they wanted to. She would just allow friends, family, what have you, have the code to this key lock box. And another strange, odd coincidence was that the key to her key lock box was laying on the ground with blood on it in front of her house. And the key lock box was open. Now, that's not strange at all. So again, the police are saying, no need to worry, Detroit. Not a random act. This is someone, we're not ready to say what relationship it is, but no need to worry, we got this. And this is a absolutely horrific, bloody crime scene. From her sofa in her living room, pillows, her laptop, her phone is thrown under the sofa. Hallway is just saturated in a pool of blood. And Samantha fought so hard, and she ended up living quite a while through this, long enough that she was able to crawl her way out of her townhouse onto the sidewalk in between her townhouse and another, where she finally collapses and she takes her last breath. For who knows how long she was out on that sidewalk, but at least until 6:20 in the morning, when a neighbor finds her deceased. Now, the neighbor does not try CPR. He does not attempt to ensure that there's a way to save her. We don't know if she could have been saved. We don't know, because the neighbor wouldn't try CPR. He's walking his dog. And we don't know what kind of dog. We don't know if the dog touched Samantha. We don't know if he says he touched Samantha on a spot of her back that was revealed under her jacket, but he says he didn't get any blood on him, but he says she was gone. He doesn't call 911. He goes all the way back to his townhome to his wife, where she calls 911 so very calmly, like she's ordering supper. You know, do you want ranch on that? It's very calm. Neither one of them try CPR. They don't want to. They don't feel comfortable with that. So no one knows if Samantha could have been saved in those moments. And the police don't arrive until 6:48 a.m. And then the first moments that they go into her townhome are around 7:52 in the morning. And they find tons of prints. Now, the first officer on the scene goes in. It's still dark, just so you all know. It's still dark outside. They can't see. According to the neighbor, he couldn't see the blood on the sidewalk, but yet he describes blood, but he can't see it. He says she's purple, blue, but he can't see the blood on the sidewalk because it's dark. So I'm not sure how he could see that she's purple and blue. He could also describe her hoodie, what it says, although she's in the fetal position. So I'm not sure how he could read what was on the front of her hoodie if she's in the fetal position. Also, it's dark, right? I'm not really sure how he could describe all of these things, but it's dark. When the police arrive, they say it's still dark. When they go into the townhouse, it's still dark. And he says, the first officer on the scene says, I didn't step in any blood. I tiptoed my way around everything. I was using my flashlight on my fishing pole, using my flashlight. Made sure to just tiptoe around, didn't step in any blood. This is a very, very bloody crime scene. Very bloody. Blood's everywhere. And he's saying he didn't step in any blood. When the detectives get on the stand, however, they say there's so many footprints, most of them bare footprints from Samantha, but there's so many footprints, they don't even bother taking any footprint evidence because the scene has clearly been contaminated by officers going in and out, in and out, in and out. So they're just afraid that there's no need to take any footprints because they're just going to end up taking the majority of footprints are going to belong to their officers. So there's no need to take footprint evidence. And also, most of them are barefoot, so they think they belong to Samantha anyway. So there's no point in taking any footprint evidence. Never mind that the attacker could have been barefoot. Never mind that. Never mind that the very, very bloody crime scene that they only took Q-tip swabs of blood off the wall, off the door, and off the floor, Q-tip size, not the entire blood, where they could have possibly found another person's mixture of blood, because usually in a stabby crime scene, you will find the other person's blood, because when they stabby someone, they end up cutting themselves in the process, because you will find out later that Samantha's blood was actually mixed with another person's DNA that they never could find out who it belonged to. But it was male DNA and not the male that was on trial. But the mixture of blood belonged to someone else. And they didn't look deep enough to find out who it could possibly belong to, and nor did they care, because they accused a person of this crime without digging deep enough to find out who it possibly could have been, because they wanted to stick to the narrative that they wrote, that she was attacked and deceased at exactly 4:20 a.m. So at 4:20 a.m., this happened. At 4:20 a.m., she was attacked brutally, stabbed 8 times in the head and neck. All this blood came out. No major arteries were hit, by the way. Nothing. No major arteries were hit. So somehow, some way, with no major arteries hit, this amount of blood is all over her apartment. And somehow, some way, at 4:20 a.m., she's attacked, deceased, and crawls outside her townhouse and ends up on the sidewalk. And nothing. But what is surprising is that when the police arrive at 6:48, the EMS arrived there first, of course. There's a trail of blood from the door down the sidewalk, and Samantha's in front of the 1368 townhome, and she's covered in blood because, again, no major arteries were hit, but somehow she's covered in blood. So I don't know how this happens in the span of a minute or 2 minutes, 4:20 to 4:22, when the ADT alarm goes idle, because this is what we're depending on, right? Is an ADT alarm system, motion sensor system. So that's what your life is, counting on. That's what the DA is counting on. And she's wearing a hoodie, only her hands and legs. She has no shoes. You could see her face, according to the neighbor. And they go back to her townhouse, and it's still dark. Okay. The screen door, the light in the living room is on in the corner. Everything's still in her home. Everything. Her laptop is still sitting there. Her Cannondale bike is still sitting in the entryway. Her keys to her car, her wallet, everything of value is just sitting there. So it's not like it's a burglary gone wrong. It's not like, anything like that. There's blood everywhere. There's a half-eaten banana on her sofa. I guess Samantha ate it. They didn't test her stomach contents at the autopsy, so we don't know. The back door is locked. There's no blood in the kitchen. There's, the body cam. When was it turned on? We don't know. So they point out that they feel that the front door was wide open. However, every one of these townhomes have a storm door, half black, half glass storm door. There's not very much lighting in this townhome area. There's trees and there's black doors, so it's dark. It's in the middle of the night. You couldn't tell if her door was wide open. So even if a stranger wanted to just pop in and rob her and take an opportunity of an open door, you wouldn't know her door was open. Unless you just opened her storm door and were like, oh, yay, this door's open. Let me go in here and steal something. So they didn't show the body cam of the first officer on scene at all to see his initial walkthrough of Samantha's home. Did he have body cam? Where is the body cam? So the defense didn't ask that. The prosecution didn't show that. None of that was shown. The blood was still damp. So they say there were multiple wounds around her neck area. The sidewalk had blood droplets from Sam's townhouse all the way down the sidewalk. The storm door screen glass both had blood on it. There were large amounts of blood and items knocked over, blood on the floor. There was the foyer had blood in it, the front hall, the walls, the stairs, the banister. I mean, just blood everywhere, but it didn't hit a major artery. So in order for that much blood to be all over the place, she had to have bled out for a while. And that was determined by the former medical examiner of Detroit was able to determine that is how that happens. And if you don't complete an autopsy, when he looked at this autopsy, he said this autopsy wasn't complete. I can't even give you a conclusive answer because this autopsy was not complete. So the back door, not unlocked. The living room, there was a green vape pen. There was a banana peel, her flip-flops. They used, all the placards. They only collected 4 trace pen swabs of blood evidence. They only tested the keyboard, key box lock. It was closed but not locked. Bloody flip-flops, her cell phone. The basement door was locked. There was blood all over the carpet. They didn't take the carpet. They just did Q-tip swabs. Now remember, blood everywhere. But they didn't test all of the blood. They didn't take up the carpet. They didn't do any of that. Now, I will say that they did take the cushions from the sofa. They took the cushions, the throw pillows, but they didn't test those things. They also did a rape test kit on Samantha, but they didn't test the kit. So again, a lot more questions than answers in this case. Why? They processed the door for prints. They didn't find any, I guess. They processed the key lock box for prints, which they found several prints, but none to match anyone but Samantha and different people they couldn't verify. They took 19 total swabs of the inner panel of the screen door, the doorknob, the floor, the fruit bowl on the kitchen table, the blood swabbed in the front overturned date bowl, an open drawer in the second bedroom upstairs, and an open drawer by the nightstand, a vibrator, and the walkways and the sidewalk. Now, you would test the vibrator, but not test the rape kit. That seems very odd to me. It just seems odd that you would test that, but not test the rape kit. They didn't test all of this massive amount of blood. Massive amount. So when you look at this situation, you wonder, who could it be? Who would want to do this to such an amazing person? Someone that is beloved by the community, someone that has given so much, someone that has put and helped so many powerful people be put in such powerful positions, right? Well, as I said, the Detroit Police Department said they had their person. They had a suspect. They were just not yet ready to announce the relationship between this person and Samantha. So they had all this mountain of evidence against the person they put on trial, so they say. So much blood, but they only took 4 Q-tips and a total of apparently 19 swabs. So approximately 19 total swabs of anything They didn't take any footprint evidence because, well, they just thought most of those were Samantha's anyway. And also, I'm testing, police footprints because that would be crazy, right? We don't want a process of elimination on that. So, and the volume of blood was just insane. So why would we want to test that blood when we can just take little samples? So where are the cushions? What about the foot impressions? There were some foot impressions that they didn't take or even test. They said there was no point. They weren't told to do that. So many people were involved in this. I mean, the Violent Crime Task Force, the FBI, the Detroit Police Department, the state police, everyone was involved in this and everyone had a job to do. And everyone was just kind of like, no, that wasn't my job. That wasn't my job. That wasn't my job. They just kept passing it off to the next person. So they only took photos of the blood, but they didn't test all the blood. So then we go on to who were the possible suspects. Now, we already know David Wilkinson was supposed to be there that night, but he wasn't. And we also know that David Wilkinson is the last person that she texted that night with the heart emoji. And we don't know what David Wilkinson texted to her. We have no idea. That was not entered into trial. And then we also know about this confession. Or do we? No. You know what? We don't know about this confession because the police didn't announce this confession until the trial. Yes. So Samantha had a boyfriend. She had many boyfriends, according to her friend Paul, who ran over Samantha with a bus, threw her under the bus, ran over her, and ran over her again by putting out all her dirty laundry, and her family just sitting there having to listen to how much fun and the best life Samantha, single, was living in Detroit. But he brought out every guy that Samantha had ever had any type of relationship with and named all of them. And Samantha was having some relationships with some married men, some people that her family knew very well, and most of these men were Jewish. But apparently the selection pool in the Jewish community is pretty tight. It's pretty small. So, Samantha was on the hunt, okay? But she wasn't finding anybody that was a match. But she had one guy. She had one guy that was at the synagogue that she'd known for many years. And then she finally started dating this guy, Jeffrey Herbstman. Jeffrey Herbstman and Samantha dated for a little over a year. And they had kind of a weird relationship. Samantha's very outgoing. She's very bubbly. She's a great person. Jeffrey Herbstman's kind of a introvert. Not as bubbly and outgoing as Samantha. And as far as everyone is concerned, Jeff was not a good match for Samantha. No one liked Jeff. No one cared for him. No one had anything really great to say about Jeff, but no one really had anything like super negative to say about Jeff, but he didn't win any awards. I can tell you that. But what Jeff did say, what Jeff did do, was Jeff said, I may have murdered my girlfriend. He called 911 on himself in Kalamazoo, Michigan on November 7th, just 2 weeks away from Samantha's death. And he says, I may have murdered my girlfriend. I think I may be a danger to others. What have I done? I know I'm in big trouble. I'm having a panic attack. I'm convinced that I may have murdered my girlfriend and I don't remember it. I have the motive, the opportunity, and I may be trying to outsmart people. And what did the police do in Kalamazoo? Well, they go to him and they say, honey, you're not in trouble. Do you have anything on you? Do you have any knives? Any weapons? Do you need an ambulance? Do you need a doctor? Are you okay? And he's just freaking out. Yeah, I have a knife. There's a knife in the car. There's a knife. There's a knife. It's a pocket knife. It's in the car. Where does your girlfriend live? She lives in Detroit. How old is she? What's her name? Samantha Woll. She's 40. What's your name? Jeffrey Herbsman. Jeffreyheb. It spells his name perfectly. What's your phone number? Gives his phone number. I think I murdered my girlfriend and I don't remember it. I, I'm a danger. I might hurt other people. I'm a danger to myself and others. Now, this entire time he's saying all of these things, and the entire time the police are like, "Oh, he's having a panic attack. Which hospital do you want to go to? Which one do you recommend?" I'm sorry, what? This man just confessed to murder, and they're treating him like he's a guest at a fancy hotel. And then they take him to the police department, and they call the Detroit Police Department, Detective Trooper Stockmeyer, who comes to Kalamazoo from Detroit and sits in a room with him and gives him a phone so he can call his mommy. And he calls his mommy and he says, "Mom, it's me, Jeff. I'm at the police department." And what does mommy say? "Okay, honey." And Jeff says, "Can you call that lawyer? You know, the one." "Yes, honey, I'll call that lawyer." They don't say, "Oh, Jeffrey, what have you done? Oh, what's going on? What happened? Were you in an accident? Are you okay?" Nope. "We'll call that lawyer." "Oh, you mean the criminal defense attorney that you already spoke to before you called 911? That doesn't seem weird at all." "Oh, by the way, honey, did you tell them that you need a doctor? Make sure you tell them you need a doctor, okay?" Yeah. Doesn't sound planned in any way. No. Well, Jeff was released. Yeah. They searched his house, and all over his house was pictures of him and Samantha. He had a shrine to Samantha. And he had rubber gloves, latex gloves in a drawer. He had mushrooms. He had pot. He had keys on his table. As a matter of fact, he had a key that pretty much matched one to go to Samantha's house. He had a North Face jacket. That's significant. He had all kinds of stuff. He had cameras around his house, but they weren't working conveniently. Yeah, Jeffrey had all the makings of a murderer, along with his confession, along with having an attorney, a criminal defense attorney, on call. But did they get Jeffrey? Nope. They let Jeffrey go. They sent Jeffrey home. "It's okay, Jeff. You're good." And then suddenly, a couple weeks later, they get a guy that was walking the streets of downtown Detroit that night and go from saying, "We have a suspect. We are not ready to release the relationship between Samantha and the suspect," literally 48 hours within her death, to having the ex-boyfriend confess 2 weeks later, but not announcing that Jeffrey Herbsman confessed, not saying a name, not saying anything, just saying that they released someone. That's it. No, nothing. To suddenly arresting Michael Jackson Bolanos, a 29-year-old black man who was walking the streets of downtown Detroit that night, not making the best decisions in the world, but not murdering people. Yes, Michael Jackson Bolanos has a criminal background, but not murdering people. He is involved with theft, but not murdering people. Now, I will say, we've all made poor decisions in our life. We've made stupid decisions in our life. But to go from, let's say, I lied on my resume a little bit, I beefed up my resume some or what have you, to murder, that's a jump. I stole a car or someone gave me a stolen car and I got in trouble for that and I served my time, to murder, that's a jump. So that's what happened to Michael Jackson Bolanos. He was working. He had a regular job. Yes, he was out on the streets in the middle of the night, walking in downtown Detroit, looking for stuff that was easily available to pawn, basically. He was taking pictures of cars, nice cars, cars that people like. He wasn't stealing cars. He was checking cars out and taking pictures of them. And he was in the area. So his phone was pinging off towers in downtown Detroit. So they saw this opportunity and they were like, hey, this guy's got a record. And he was in the area. And I don't know what made them get off of Jeff or any of the other 30 hundreds of suspects, possible suspects that they supposedly interviewed and that Paul handed them on a silver platter, and suddenly go to Michael, a complete stranger that doesn't know Samantha at all, and that is supposedly such a thief that he took this moment of opportunity to go into her home that she supposedly left wide open. And they victim blamed her in the opening statement and said, due to Samantha leaving her door wide open, she allowed a stranger into her home to come and steal from her, but he didn't steal anything. Not that thousands of dollar Cannondale bike, not her car, not her laptop, not her wallet, not her computer upstairs, not her phone, not anything. Just decided to just rage and take her out. That's what a petty thief decided to do, because she was asleep on the sofa. That's so scary. I don't understand their theory, but Jeffrey Herbstman, obviously, as he stated, he had the motive, the opportunity, and he was trying to outsmart people. Motive. Samantha had broken up with him, and she wanted to get back together. They got back together, and then they broke up again. And then she wanted to get back together. And then he decided, no, I don't want to get back together. But he regretted that decision. And then she was like, no, I can't do this again. And opportunity, because he has a key to her house and he knows how to get into her house, because, hey, there's a key laying on the ground and the lockbox is unlocked and her door is open. It's cracked. Also, the back door was open by someone, whether it be Samantha or Jeffrey or David or any of the other hundreds of men that Paul handed to the police on a silver platter. He also had a way to outsmart the police. What did he say? I was at synagogue, and then I went home at 8 o'clock. He knew his times, 8 o'clock, at home, 8 o'clock, listened to a podcast, and then played a record, and then went to sleep at 10, and then I got up at 7:30 and went to the grocery store. His phone, they could not determine where his phone was because his phone couldn't be tracked. Now, why would your phone not be able to be tracked? Either your phone is on Do Not Disturb or it is on airplane mode. So your phone can't be tracked because you have it because you're trying to outsmart the police. And by the way, Jeff is a data scientist. He's not stupid. So Jeff knew exactly what he was doing. Did they interview anyone at the synagogue to see if he was actually at synagogue? Also, the Isaac Agree Synagogue records their services. Did they think to look and see if he was at the service? No one ever said that. They never pointed that out in the trial, not the defense, not the prosecution, nothing. They never asked. But everything was put on Michael Jackson Bolanos, and it was all said that because he was downtown and his phone was pinging down there, that he is the one who did it. And that he was in her house. They tried to tell him in his interrogation, which was an interrogation of confrontation and threats, and you did this, and complete accusation saying you did this. You were there, you were in her house, and he had no idea what they were talking about. And then suddenly he is brought in under false pretenses, by the way. He is pulled over by the police on his way to work. His car is searched. He's brought in under pretense of theft. And then suddenly he is confronted by murder. And he's like, what? What? I don't know what you're talking about. Like literally, the sunglasses, yes. Got the sunglasses, pawned some sunglasses, but what are you? That is not me. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Herbstman is living his life, free as a bird. Nobody's looking into anyone else, just straight on to Michael. And poor Samantha is not getting justice. Samantha was a justice warrior. She was someone who, as her own sister said, had a Black Lives Matter sign in her window. Well, that really doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, Samantha having a Black Lives Matter sign doesn't matter at all. If you wear a cross on your neck, but you don't really believe and you don't follow, then that cross on your neck is just decoration. And that Black Lives Matter sign may be something that Samantha believed in, but it's not something that her family believes in. And actually, all lives matter, because every single person who was wrongfully accused in this situation matters. And especially Michael's life matters, because he was wrongfully accused in this situation. Michael did find Samantha that night. And he did check to see if she was alive, because he did have two microscopic dots of blood on his North Face jacket. And when they discovered those two microscopic dots of blood on his jacket, when he said, yes, I found her, he told a police officer, Chad Osman, yes, I found her. He was afraid to tell anyone. Because why? Because he's a black man doing things he wasn't supposed to be doing in downtown Detroit. And this woman is dead. He doesn't want to say, like, holy crap, I found a dead body. You're going to automatically think I did it. But when they find these microscopic amounts of blood, they're mixed. They're mixed with someone else's blood, not Michael's. But no one even bothers to question that. They don't even bother to wonder, why is it that these microscopic amounts of blood that are found on her are mixed? 64-36% mixture. That's a big mixture, you guys. Big. And 89-11% with a male contributor, not Michael. That means if they would have just tested all of the blood in the townhouse, they quite possibly could have found a match to someone, even if it's not Jeff, who confessed. There is reasonable doubt, which is why Michael Jackson Bolanos was acquitted, which is why they had the wrong man. This investigation was completely botched from the beginning, which is why there are more questions than answers in this terrible, terrible death of Samantha Woll. Which is why I beg and pray for her family to open their eyes and see that we cannot go off of an ADT alarm system motion sensor for a time of death. And that you should ask the medical examiner, why did you not complete the autopsy? And why wouldn't you want a complete autopsy when someone in your family has been taken out in such a horrific way? And if you are depending on the ADT alarm system, why aren't you looking at the actual ADT alarm system times and saying what happened between 1:24 and 4:20 when the alarm was moving? There was motion. There was other motion. What happened? If you're going to go on the ADT alarm system, there was motion. What was going on in that townhome from 1:24 to 4:20? Something happened. And somehow, some way, the wrong man was put on trial. And he was found not guilty of murder in the first degree. They were deadlocked on second-degree murder and home invasion because there was no evidence to show that he actually entered her home. There was no evidence to show that he did this because he walked away literally clean as a whistle. And again, I say, Jeffrey Herbstman had a North Face jacket. He had gloves. He had a shrine to Samantha. He confessed. He had all the elements. He had more elements of being the suspect and the one that should have been on trial than Michael Jackson Bolanos did. But instead, the family would rather have believed that Michael Jackson Bolanos did it than someone else in their own community. And that is what I truly believe, is that they would rather believe that a random black guy on the street did it than someone in their own community. Because, God forbid, another person that they knew and that they have now welcomed into their family, someone who they didn't really approve of when Samantha was alive, is now, Jeff's a great guy. He's amazing. He's wonderful. And how dare anyone say anything negative about his mental health issues? How dare anyone say that his panic attack wasn't real? How dare anyone say that you wouldn't admit to murder when you're on medication? When you've taken an extra pill that you shouldn't have taken? How dare anyone speak out and say that that is not possible? When, in fact, it is not possible. If you look at the website of the medication that Jeffrey was supposedly taking, Albrelity, you don't have that kind of attack unless you are also diagnosed with bipolar, which Jeffrey, according to Jeffrey, is not. He's just depressed. He also smoked some pot and did some mushrooms and some other things, so that might make him say some crazy stuff, but I don't know how many people have confessed to murder. So, again, this is for Samantha. It is about Samantha. This is to bring a highlight. It is 1 year since Samantha has been gone off of this earth. She contributed so much to Detroit. She brought back from the dead that synagogue. The synagogue was basically in ruins and was basically going to be torn down or sold. And she is the one who revived it. She is the one who raised the money to make it basically inhabitable again. Now that synagogue is thriving, and it is thriving because of Samantha. And it has more money flowing in and out of that sucker than it has ever seen. And when you see the donor list, you'll also question, why in the world would they want Samantha to not be here? The donor list itself is connected to so many people. The cameras that followed Michael Jackson Bolanos that night, that they Frankenstein together the video for the court, belong to one of the major donors of the synagogue. They used Rock Video, which is owned by the Fisher Foundation. Fisher Foundation and the Gilbert family are the two biggest donors of the synagogue. They own a lot of real estate in downtown Detroit, a lot. And they plan on building downtown Detroit in their own image. That is why that synagogue is thriving. And that is why we'll never find the actual person who did this to Samantha, because Dana Nessel, the Attorney General, doesn't want it so. And nor does that synagogue, because they are being funded by major corporations and organizations that are trying to turn Detroit into basically their own community that is revolved around that synagogue. I mean, ask yourself, how does a building go from being condemned, rat infested, where homeless people were congregating and staying, to now it is for basically the elite of the elite? Now they have nice, cute pictures on their site to make it look like they're helping the poor and the underprivileged. But actually, there is so much money. So much. They're swimming in money. And Samantha's not here. And they put her name on the synagogue. Samantha's family has donated to that synagogue. Everything is being washed away. And Samantha is being forgotten. Not her name, not her face. They're still using that and winning. They're still using Samantha's face, using Samantha's name, however they can to keep getting money and support, because she's still useful. But unfortunately, they don't want Samantha's murderer to be found. They don't want justice to be actually served, because that would make too much sense. And it would expose what's actually going on with the synagogue. That is my theory, my opinion. I'm allowed to have it. And that is what I believe. I believe that this was a railroading of an innocent man. And I believe they know more than they say they know. And I believe that the Detroit Police Department and the District Attorney's Office and the Attorney General's Office are all in cahoots with one another. And they will never, ever reopen the case to Samantha Woll until a new mayor and a new attorney general and a new district attorney is put into place. And Michael Jackson Bolanos was found guilty of lying to the police, which who wouldn't lie to the police if you're being threatened and you're being confronted the way he was? I mean, he wasn't talked to like Jeff Herbstman. Jeff Herbstman was treated like a fancy guest at a hotel. Are you okay? Do you need anything? You want a water? Michael wasn't offered water. Michael wasn't offered anything. Michael was called names. he was called a low-down, dirty criminal, basically. He was said he was worthless. I mean, when you're talked to like that, do you want to come forth with any information? No. And then on Fox 2 Detroit, this detective actually had the nerve to say that Michael's lying was not feasible because Michael has been truthful with the cops before because he's called the cops when he needed them. But there's a difference, buddy, between calling the cops when you need them and talking to the cops when they're talking to you like you're a piece of garbage. So let's get that right. If you're being talked to and disrespected and not being treated like a human, you're not going to say anything. And Michael wasn't treated like a person. He's being treated like trash. So, of course, you're not going to be forthcoming with anything. You're probably going to be scared out of your mind. And there were several times that Michael asked for an attorney, and Sergeant Ford disregarded him. But yet, Detective Trooper Stockmeyer drives to Kalamazoo and allows Jeffrey Herbstman to call his mommy and let her call that lawyer. And the prosecutor, Ryan Elsey, victim blames Samantha Woll for her own death. And her family is just fine with that. They're just fine with the fact that, Samantha is being blamed for her own death. Her own family victim blames Samantha. What a shame that you can't even leave your own door open, that you can't keep your door unlocked, and someone come into your home and do this to you. In downtown Detroit? No, you can't do that. But hey, let's just blame the person who died. That is appalling. So I am just going to say it has been 1 year and there's no resolution. And until things change in Detroit, until people are moved around, voted out, things are shaken up, we will not see Samantha get justice. So I hope and pray that someone sees this video, someone decides they want to speak out, they want to say something. Chad Osman, I hope you will want to say something. Lance Sullivan, who pieced together that Frankenstein video, who's now retired from the Detroit Police Department, I urge you to say something. Someone say something, because you can't all be being paid off and on the same team forever. Somebody has to tell the truth. You can't allow this injustice to go on forever. It has to be keeping you up at night. It has to be. God has to put his hands on you and say, please tell the truth, for the truth shall set you free. I pray for this. I pray for Samantha to get justice because she deserves it. She deserves justice. So I hope that everyone enjoys this video. I will continue to be doing recaps of the witness testimonies for this trial so that you can see how this is all wrong and that Samantha deserves justice. And I'm going to continue to talk about Samantha Woll, and I will do this until she finally gets justice or until someone hears that, this matters. And it doesn't matter just because Samantha is a white Jewish female. It's not about that. This is about wrongfully accused people and actual justice and cases going cold because people are being wrongfully accused. That's what this is about. It doesn't matter what color the victim is. It doesn't matter any of that. What matters is wrongful accusing, wrongful convictions, wrongful. and a case going cold because you have people in positions that refuse to admit they were wrong. And I don't want to see this go years and years and years down the road just for a prosecutor to come along and go, oh yeah, sorry, we were wrong about that. And then that person end up being dead or served 40, 50 years in prison for something they didn't do. And the family and the person who was victimized not get justice. So I appreciate everyone watching. I hope that you will all pray for Samantha and her family. I hope that you will all pray for Detroit and pray that change happens. I hope that you are all registered to vote. And I pray that you will vote with what your heart and God tells you, and hope that you understand that your vote does matter and change must happen. And the only way change is going to happen is if you vote for change. You must vote. These people in these positions in Detroit will never, ever find Samantha's killer unless you vote these people out and put new people in place. We must keep this case on the radar, alive and well, so that this can be solved. Samantha deserves justice. Kamsahamnida. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and become a member. I appreciate it.